We've started recording, right?
Right now.
Hey, well, it's great to have a chance to talk with Connor Sephton, who's been in the crypto journalist space for quite a few years. I won't go into a lot of detail, just to say that he's had the honor of appearing on the BBC talking about Cardassian coins, so that's impressive to me. But hey, Connor, maybe you'd like to say a little bit about yourself to folks who are going to be watching this on the BigONE YouTube channel.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. So as you say, I've been in crypto journalism for about 3 years. And then at the moment, mainly working with CoinMarketCap, doing their daily news. And we also do a weekly podcast for them as well. And yeah, it's a fascinating time to be in crypto journalism. There's just so much news around and there's a lot of issues left to solve, aren't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for that intro. I know it'd be, there's a lot to talk about, and obviously we'd like to make good use of your expertise, your insights. So why don't we pick up with, one of the flavors of the month, NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, to say it not quite so concisely, but yeah, NFTs. I don't know if you heard that, Twitter are planning to, or maybe they already have rolled out for iPhone the avatar NFTs, and TikTok top moments are coming out. I think it might have actually gone on sale yesterday for top artists. What do you reckon? Is this just something that's kind of going to level out, or is it just going to grow and grow? What's your thoughts about wider NFT adoption?
When it comes to Twitter and TikTok, I actually think it's quite exciting on a number of levels. So with TikTok, I think that it's going to be really interesting to see whether NFTs kind of punch into that younger audience, because like 32% of people who use TikTok are 10 to 19 years old. But there was a poll by Piper Sandler a few days ago that said only 9% of teenagers have actually invested in cryptocurrencies. So it'll be cool to see whether or not teenagers are interested in this. One thing that worries me about TikTok, though, is the fact that if these are just going to be tokenized versions of moments which are still going to be easily accessible on the platform, is there going to be much incentive for people to buy these NFTs if they can just see the videos anyway? I don't know. But when it comes to Twitter, I think the idea of authenticating NFTs for profile pictures is really exciting, and it will give people bragging rights if they've got CryptoPunks or if they've got Bored Apes, and of course for any other NFT collections that come along. And I think that it's possible that one of the next frontiers really for NFTs on Twitter will probably be headers, and we might see a growing number of NFT collections try to buy that bit of real estate on a Twitter profile as well. So 2 really promising developments, but I guess it's a case of wait and see, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be an interesting market. Like with TikTok, just myself, I've been watching the articles that are coming out, and I seen Nas and Bella Porsche are 2 of the top starting ones, I believe, and you can see they're really pushing it right now at the moment, like on the news and everywhere. I didn't know about the Twitter one, but that sounds amazing and interesting. We're just in the beginning phases, I feel, of NFTs and what we can do and how it's going to change. So I'm excited to see the evolution of NFTs as a whole. So it's going to be fun. I really love everything that's going on.
But what do you reckon, though, to NFTs and the world of football? I don't know if you're a footy fan yourself, Connor, but I mean, I'm intrigued by it, but a little bit kind of cautious at the same time, because all the money flowing around. But obviously it's so rare. Made the headlines. They did a big raise. They're really in that whole space, and obviously through BigONE we have our own NFT with Ronaldinho. I mean, do you see that taking off big with fans? The whole NFT in the sort of football fan space.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen obviously some success stories, namely NBA Top Shot, which of course one of the best selling NFT collections of all time. Football, I think, is ripe for NFTs to enter the space, and of course we've seen the likes of many top flight football clubs and leagues like La Liga in Spain are all getting involved in NFTs, also with fan engagement tokens. Less of a fan of fan engagement tokens because I think that they just allow people to get access to vote on fairly arbitrary decisions. But if you've got a really, really coveted player, such as Ronaldo, who's just gone to Manchester United, and an NFT is released of him, I think that, you know, that would really, really gain momentum. And we're seeing cryptocurrencies and sport get closer and closer together anyway, with sponsorship deals, with fan engagement tokens, with NFTs. So I think that in the next year or two, we will definitely see awareness of NFTs increase among fans. And that might spur some clubs to look into new opportunities of how they could be used. And they may extend beyond digital trading cards that we're seeing now into something entirely different.
Connor, I got a question for you. What do you feel? I know it's not on our list here, but my question is, what do you feel the direction of NFTs, or where it's going, or what the future of it is versus what it is right now when it comes to like the images and the art and all that?
That's a very difficult question, and I think it'd be very tricky to accurately predict where the NFT market will be in the years to come. I think there's a couple of things that stick in my head. One is Beeple, who a few months ago now, after selling his NFT for $70 million, gave that interview to CNN Business with Julia Chatterley, and he said that he felt that NFTs in the current form are a bubble and the bubble will burst. But his argument was NFTs, the technology of NFTs will endure, and we will see NFTs survive. And it's kind of like the dot-com boom and bust. Although many companies ended up going under, a few did endure. And so I think NFTs are here to stay. I think we have barely scratched the surface of the use cases that they could have. But if you're asking me whether I think CryptoPunks and Bored Apes will still have these astronomical values in the future, jury's out on that one. And I think that the tricky thing is, firstly, in some ways, the Ethereum blockchain, because of the congestion issues and the high transaction fees, to some extent has actually been holding the NFT sector back. So I think that when we shift to proof of stake, Ethereum 2, which hopefully will happen next year, I think that could have a massive impact on the NFT market and potentially change the way that NFTs are minted, the types of NFTs that are minted, and embolden more people to get involved because the costs won't be so prohibitive.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I guess it's also what's in parallel and overlapping with that, this whole play as you earn GameFi space. I mean, that's kind of, I know, a little bit beyond me, but I mean, you know much, have you come across that yourself, Connor, this whole, you know, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, it's pretty amazing, but, you know, I don't know NFTs are involved in that, right?
Yeah. So I think I'm a bit conflicted on this, especially with GameFi, because it's definitely important. It's definitely exciting. But right now, it's just nowhere near ready for any type of mainstream adoption, in my opinion. I think that many of the games that exist are bordering on unusable. And they're also incredibly expensive to use. For an assignment I had to try and use one of these play-to-earn games. I won't name which one. But I can tell you that I had a nightmare trying to figure out how the site worked. Didn't know where I was meant to be going. And then I had to buy NFTs before I could even start playing the game. And I don't know whether I was doing things right or wrong, but I do know that I ended up spending probably about $300 trying to get all the bits that I needed to play the game. And then I started playing the game and it wasn't very good. So I don't think the likes of Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo are going to be losing much sleep over this yet. However, I think that as the industry evolves, as it matures, and as we see more big brands get involved in this space, it's definitely one to watch. And I think the idea of being able to, you know, earn NFTs or earn crypto based on skill is exciting. I think the idea that you'll truly own an asset in a game is exciting and you can sell it on a secondhand marketplace or take it with you to another game. That's brilliant. We've already seen some people in developing economies, I think it's the Philippines, where some people are actively making a living on play-to-earn games. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on, but like anything, like any technology, it's just at a very early stage and things are clunky right now.
I'd agree. I've just seen one company that's coming out with a meta scanner soon, which are going to be releasing it in 4K scans, full scans of objects and stuff. And I'm kind of excited for that because it's not so much like an NFT, like a one of one or anything like that, but they're actually making a marketplace for video games. So say you scan this table or this vase, and the game wanted to take that image and upload it into their game, they can. And it's going to be the same thing with people actually getting scanned. They're going to be doing it in Dubai in actually later this month. They plan on scanning, I think it's over 20,000 people during the event. And it's a full 4K scan of a person. You can actually upload it on USB and stick it on your, into games and stuff in the future is the idea of it. It's like a skin. And I'm kind of excited for that side of the NFTs. But I think also too, like you were mentioning, like the future a little bit, GameFi is huge. But in the end, like, is this going to be working for our systems like voting, for instance, where you have data on the blockchain for voting or documents for accounting for companies? Like there's so much that can be open when it comes to NFTs. I'm super excited for the future and what it holds, like, because as a society, I think we're evolving with cryptocurrency so fast. It's incredible once it's mainstream for everyone. I'm kind of interested to see what happens.
Yeah, the blockchain voting one's actually a really interesting topic. I was interviewing a guy, this must have been last year now, and I can't remember the context of the story, but his argument was because there are a number of like applications which help to people to cast votes in elections on the blockchain, and the argument was, I think it was in relation to Belarus actually. The argument was that there is a danger that blockchain voting can actually be potentially less safe than a paper ballot. This guy's argument was that it would make, because when you have to, if you're trying to falsify paper ballots, you have to obviously manually go and every box and do it that way. His idea was actually blockchain system potentially could be easy to manipulate and votes could be compromised that way. People could also still be influenced to vote because they'd be in the comfort of their own homes and we don't know what's going on there rather than in a public place. And the danger is as well, you could have a falsified election result, but the fact that blockchain technology was used could potentially give it a sheen of credibility because of the fact that blockchains are immutable, right? So people would be kind of thinking, well, it must be right because it's blockchain. So exciting use case, but again, it's just one of those things where you've got to iron out the kinks and make sure that everything's bulletproof. And it's the same thing we're seeing with GameFi as well. You just got to work out those kinks.
For sure. But I mean, I guess in the same kind of category of, things that have promise, but maybe a little bit overhyped. What are your thoughts on the whole meme coin, the whole Dogecoin slice of life? Because I'm actually starting to see I appreciate, people have got a skeptical view in one way, but in terms of payments, I can see Dogecoin actually taking off. It's fast, it's low cost, and it's kind of fun. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Connor?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Stuart, because they're actually, I don't know how far they've got with this, but I do know that they were actively trying to reduce the transaction fees, the minimum transaction fees with Doge to try and make it more of an effective kind of payment mechanism. And of course, we've seen Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks. He's really keen on making sure that the team accepts Dogecoin as merchandise. I mean, on the day we're talking now, it's been a crazy day for meme coins. In fact, it's been a crazy week because what we've seen all of these offshoots of Dogecoin emerge over the past few months. and Shiba Inu, which is one of them, is actually up 350% over the past 7 days. And then there are others, and they're all inspired by Elon Musk's. He got a Shiba Inu puppy called Floki, and he actually revealed what the name of the dog would be a few months before he actually got the dog, which gave people the opportunity to get the cryptocurrencies set up and ready. And then there's another one called Baby Shiba Inu. That's risen by 650% in the past 24 hours, which is just insanity, right? It's just absolutely insane. And so we've got these endless variations. When it comes to Dogecoin themed meme coins, I think that the interesting thing that we're going to see is, Elon Musk has now got a puppy. Obviously, dogs for life. We're going to have this dog around for some time to come. And it's just going to be interesting to see whether or not every time he tweets a photo of this dog, whether or not all of these derivatives of Dogecoin go through the roof, or whether or not over time we will start to see his influence on these coins diminish. And of course, I have to mention the fact that, even though all these coins go up massively, 650%, as I said before, with Baby Shiba Inu, they normally do come crashing down again fairly quickly. I will just say one more thing though, and this is my bad, but last summer, I wrote a piece, and it was a rather kind of snooty piece, kind of making light of the fact that there was a TikTok challenge aiming to send Dogecoin to $1. And at this point, Dogecoin was like at fractions of a cent. And I was like saying in this article, wow, this is ridiculous. What are these people playing at? And then, of course, in May, it hit 74 cents. So, clearly I didn't know what I was talking about. But, people who had invested $1 in Doge back then they probably would have had like tens of thousands of dollars from that single dollar as a result of the price appreciation. So, meme coins, I think, are here to stay, and there will be all sorts of other meme coins emerge, but it's a very, very high stakes, risky game, and it's not one to be entered into lightly because it's very easy to jump in right when prices are high and get your fingers burned.
Sure.
I love this question that Stuart has. What's the best long-term investment apart from BTC or ETH in your opinion? Not financial advice for anybody though, of course.
Oh, that's a really hard question. I'm not entirely sure about that one. I think that you could argue that one of the Ethereum killers is quite an interesting place, potentially, not financial advice, to put your money. There was a good report this week by Grayscale Investments, and they were arguing that on a per user basis, so what they did is they took the total market cap of Ethereum and the total market cap of Cardano, and they divided it by the number of monthly users that Cardano and Ethereum have. And on that basis, they found, I'm not sure about the exact figures, but they found that Cardano is actually incredibly undervalued in their view to Ethereum. And, we've got Cardano, we've got Solana, we've got Polkadot. Solana, until very recently, until it had this blockchain outage recently, was on a tear. And I think that Ethereum is in a really tight spot right now because they need this proof of stake upgrade to happen now, and they need it to happen flawlessly. If it doesn't happen now, and if it doesn't happen flawlessly, what we will see is developers eventually get despondent and move in increasing numbers to Cardano, to Polkadot, to Solana. And if that happens, they could be compelling bets for the next few years. I mean, we've already seen Cardano. I mean, at some points last week, it was the third biggest cryptocurrency by market cap, which, at the start of this year would have been unimaginable. So your answer to the question, Ethereum killers are worth looking at. Not financial advice.
What is your thought on Ripple right now, or XRP?
That's a very interesting question. And of course, the SEC lawsuit's still ongoing. The thing is, Ripple as a company has actually entered into some really interesting partnerships recently. Just the other day, it inked a deal with the Qatar National Bank, one of the biggest banks in the Middle East and North Africa. And they're going to use RippleNet, which is a one of the Ripple's main kind of like technologies, to offer low-cost remittances, which is a really exciting application. That does not use XRP. That's worth bearing in mind. But you know, it does. Ripple has got this infrastructure which is increasingly being used. They've signed other partnerships. They've signed one in Malaysia as well, I know, quite recently. And I think as well that there's a corridor linking, I think it's Japan and the Philippines. Don't quote me on that. But so Ripple's got exciting use cases. I think with XRP, I wouldn't want to speculate until we find out more about what's happening with this lawsuit. It's very unpredictable at the moment. And, you know, at the same time, though, it did surprise me when XRP ended up tumbling all the way down to 20 cents in December when this lawsuit was unveiled. And then we see I think it hit like $1.90 earlier this year, like April and May, when things were going crazy. So there's still interest in it among crypto investors, but it's a very uncertain time because of this allegation that it was an unregistered securities offering. And there's going to be fireworks before we find out what the outcome of that is.
Another good question is with El Salvador and their adoption of Bitcoin. I'm thinking you're starting to see other countries look at the adoption of Bitcoin in their countries as well, or cryptocurrency as a whole. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Brazil, wasn't it? Like Brazil are reportedly looking into it, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. And I think that many people are keeping a very close eye with what is happening in El Salvador. And I know for a fact that the day we're talking, it's exactly 1 month since Bitcoin became legal tender in El Salvador. And, you know, it's interesting to see that for most of the month, we were in a situation where Bitcoin was actually trading at a loss compared with the price where it was at on September the 7th when it became legal tender, which was not very good for the people of El Salvador. But now that prices have risen again, and they are now trading, as we're talking, above a level where they were on September the 7th. President Nayib Bukele has said that people are depositing more cash in Chivo ATMs than they are withdrawing, which is a sign that people are buying into Bitcoin. Bloomberg had a report earlier this week that people are now day trading Bitcoin. And also, you've got remittances, which are also proving quite fruitful. And the Salvadoran government has made actually quite a healthy profit of $3.2 million, I calculated, over the past month on the 700 Bitcoin that it bought. So early days, but if Nayib Bukele's decisions vindicated, especially over the quarter ahead, and especially as time evolves, you know, we could see more countries, especially countries in Central America and Latin America, look at adopting Bitcoin as legal tender more seriously. I do think, though, that they will learn the lesson of El Salvador rushing this through, because to do this in 3 months, as they did, is by Bukele's own admission, incredibly ambitious, too ambitious, because people just didn't have the time to adjust, and you've got to educate people before you do this type of thing. And that's a big ask.
The one thing I noticed that's incredible for me lately is I do a lot of Twitter spaces and stuff with BigONE. And one of the biggest things is I'm seeing a lot of adoption in Africa and different places like that, actually on Twitter. I was in a chat yesterday where a gentleman was from Ghana was in there, and other countries. Like, you're starting to see people really start to talk about it and come into these spaces and just wanting to get educated and learn how to trade or asking questions. And as long as us as a community, like the cryptocurrency community, can get along and actually work together, I think it's going to be the benefit to the whole world. Like, when we have mass adoption of this, it's opening up that population of, like, I know SafeMoon is kind of famous for saying it, but the unbanked, I'm really excited for that. My wife is from the Philippines originally, and for them, like, sending money and stuff like you were mentioning earlier, it's a huge fee for people, and it takes a while to actually get the money. And with blockchain and a token as a whole. Like, it's so much quicker and so much faster. And to give people micro loans, like they were talking about in Mongolia and different places like that, to open up opportunity, and I think take away some of the a regulation that some other countries have put on them, is incredible. I really think it's going to help for democracy as a whole, like to actually help people free themselves a little bit too. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with you. I was told a really a staggering story on the podcast I was hosting last week. I was interviewing Ethan Liu. He went to North Korea on that trip with Virgil Griffith. He's the Ethereum developer who's pleaded guilty to conspiring to help North Korea evade sanctions. And I was talking to him about that. But he mentioned separately that, so you are now hearing this story third hand, so I hope I've got it right, is that he mentioned that he was reading a story about a woman in Afghanistan. And of course, many people have now left Afghanistan to try and flee the Taliban. And he said that this woman had memorized the private key that she had for 2.5 Bitcoin in her head. She had it in her head because, of course, banking infrastructure was closed. All sorts of infrastructure was affected in Afghanistan. There was literally no way of getting cash in some cases. And so she literally made this harrowing journey to leave the country, memorizing this private key to make sure that when she got to her destination, she had some form of financial independence and she had some money to start a new life, which is just an extraordinary tale. But yes, you know, crypto and its potential is truly international. It really is. And it's exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I was quite excited talking about that and what Scott was mentioning, the great Jack Dorsey on Twitter pushing this Lightning Network, the tipping feature. Did you hear about that, Connor?
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's really good, and you know, the way they characterized it is it could be a really powerful way of kind of, you know, if a small business is struggling, or if there's a comedian trying to, you know, tell a few jokes and trying to raise money to go on tour or something, or even if if there's a journalists you like the content that they're putting out and you want to make a tip to them, there's all sorts of exciting use cases for it. There's really great use cases, and again, it's a way of kind of introducing people to crypto and allowing them to see how payments can work, how receiving Bitcoin can work. It's very exciting. I'm not entirely sure though. I'd be interested to see whether it punches out of crypto Twitter. That's gonna be something that I'm gonna wait and see on. I'm not sure that, unless there's some sort of massive publicity drive by Twitter, or unless someone who is both appealing to crypto enthusiasts and everyday consumers starts offering this or using this, I'm not sure it's going to punch through. Hope it does, but
do you know what's funny is I could see so back in the day, like I've known about cryptocurrency for a long time. I actually knew about Dogecoin at 0.00000, like the very beginning. I was on Reddit for that. And I used to watch people actually tipping Bitcoin and Doge to different people in forums for doing good deeds or doing other stuff. So I'm wondering if Reddit is going to follow Twitter's tipping part and actually do it in a different form of cryptocurrency. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with that if they adopt some kind of system just like them, because I could see that growing exponentially as well. If they grab onto a certain token or something, it's going to be crazy to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, they kind of are already doing that, because they've launched 2 tokens in only 2 subreddits. Of course, one of them is the cryptocurrency subreddit, and the other one's Fortnite. So I think you've got bricks in the Fortnite one, and you've got moons in the cryptocurrency one. And the idea is that you will get you get these in exchange for posting something that people vote up. And then you can use that for, snazzy avatars or things like that. Now, it is possible, theoretically, to change this into cash. However, Decrypt did an article on this like last year, I think, and they said, and here's how you can change your moons into crypto that you can then convert for fiat if you wanted to. And it was like there were dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of steps, and it was just prohibitively complicated. However, there have been guys there was one guy, I think, who had like a real big stash of moons, and he actually paid for his rent using it because he actually persevered and went through this process. So, yeah, the challenge is there, though, like you say, is A, whether or not Reddit expand this to other subreddits, and B, whether or not, I think this was a few months ago, and there's probably been a development since then, they were looking for a scalability solution, which would mean that it could be used by all of its users. And I think they've got 430 million users. So the challenge is, if they're going to make crypto part of their platform fully, they need to make sure that they've got a good layer 2 solution, something that's scalable. That means that it can run without falling over. But potentially that could be more exciting than Twitter's tip jars, in my view.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I have one other question. Stuart mentioned you also have your own website. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, that's this really appalling thing now. So I started a business. Oh gosh, it's nearly a year now. In fact, it is a year. I started a business a year ago, and it's called Newslead. And the idea of the business is to provide crypto news stories, features, explainers to businesses that are hoping to kind of like break things down for their users. So in the past, we've worked with the likes of CoinMarketCap, we've worked with OKX, we've also worked with Crystal Blockchain, which is a really exciting company. They're a blockchain intelligence firm, and they help businesses and government agencies to track fraudulent transactions. So if something goes wrong and a platform's hacked, in real time, they can kind of like track where the funds go, alert exchanges so they can ensure that the money isn't then shifted off their platform. So we're aiming to kind of like provide journalistic content which kind of helps further understanding, because we're still at such an early age when it comes to education. But the business is there, but my website's not. It's designed. It's just I haven't written the copy yet. It's a case of like the cobbler's son's got the worst shoes. It's like I'm writing content for everybody else. I haven't had time to do my own yet. So yes, the business is there, website's not.
That's awesome. At least you're growing in a great way. So I'm excited to see that once you have that up and running. I'd love to check it out.
Oh, thank you. So would I. Well, yeah. So hopefully it will happen at some point. Hopefully this year. I just need to get on top of it. I was just really disorganized.
I'll let Stuart take over now.
Well, I think I've covered most of the questions that I wanted to ask Connor, because obviously it's great. You've got a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise in the area. I mean, is there anything yourself that you're particularly, obviously everyone's talking about NFTs or meme coins. Is there anything, you personally that you're like kind of intrigued or focused on? Maybe it hasn't hit the news big time yet, but that people should look out for. Anything in that sense?
I think that the conversation around central bank digital currencies isn't really punching through yet. And I think that's going to be a really big topic in the years to come. It's being covered in crypto media very extensively, but when it comes to traditional media outlets, I think that coverage in some places has been rather scant. Of course, Rishi Sunak's looking into BitCoin, which is a genius name, the Chancellor in the UK. That's pretty cool. And of course, what's going to be really interesting in the next 2 or 3 years is this massive race to launch a central bank digital currency. The Bahamas they've got the sand dollar, but we've got China, which hope to have theirs up and running in time for the Winter Olympics in Beijing next February. Sweden's close, and I think that some of the main themes that I think are good things to watch out for include: will the US face will the US kind of like face consequences or feel the impact of being rather slow off the mark when it comes to CBDCs? I was speaking to someone from the Atlantic Council who said that China could really gain some dominance here, and also the US is at risk of not being involved, even if it's not interested in having a CBDC of its own right now. They're in danger of not being able to be a part of creating the standards for CBDCs to ensure that there's some sort of uniformity around the world. That's going to be dangerous. It'll be interesting to see about financial inclusion. I see all the time, oh yeah, you know, cryptocurrencies are great for financial inclusion. Yes, to some extent, but the thing is, people who are unbanked also may not have a bank account. People who are unbanked may not have a mobile phone, I should have said. People may not have the technical know-how to kind of use these type of tools. And so if you're creating a CBDC, you need to make sure that it's easy to use and that it runs alongside cash. It cannot be a replacement for cash, at least not at this stage. And you need to make sure it doesn't affect people who maybe have disabilities or people who live in rural areas. There are certain sections of society that may struggle with a CBDC. And of course, there's the issue of privacy. And this is not just an issue that's exclusive to China. People's Bank of China have said that they want the digital yuan to have controllable anonymity. And there was an analogy I saw in a place I used to work, which basically said, okay, so if you're buying a Winnie the Pooh book, that might get blocked because some have likened President Xi Jinping to Winnie the Pooh. But the point is, this will be a battle that is also fought in the West, because people will expect that any digital version of their sovereign currency will have the same level of anonymity as someone exchanging a £10 note or a $20 note in the street. And can CBDCs offer that? You know, there's a lot of stuff to be worked out here. So I think that's going to be a really big focus, especially as central banks, the major central banks, the Fed, the Bank of England, start to get their head around this.
Yeah, fascinating subject. Appreciate your thoughts on that, Connor. Sounds like something to watch out for sure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Did you read recently about Tether, or do you have any thoughts on that network itself?
Are you talking about this this Bloomberg article that came out today?
Yeah, I just read it today. It's
crazy. There's this thing about the fact that one of the banks that I think offers custody for Tether tokens didn't even like create Inspector Gadget or something. Like, it's really surreal, this story.
Yeah.
It's mad. I mean, of course, I'm not sure. I mean, there was a lot of depth. There was a lot of color in this Bloomberg piece. I'm not entirely sure how much of it was new, but it's a big issue, and the issue of whether or not can Tether account for all of its reserves is a really important one, and this also extends to other stable coins. There was also a CoinDesk report last night, and it was talking about the fact that a banking regulator in the US is considering making sure that so say for instance, if a user has a stable coin and the bank where the reserves for this stable coin is held collapses, there's a possibility that regulators would want to ensure that people in the US are protected in the same way they would with normal bank deposits. So if the bank with the reserves of up to $250,000 worth of a stable coin collapses, the user would be insured and would get that money back, which sounds great on the face of it. But again, there's challenges here, because firstly, that would mean tracking the identity of people who own stable coins, which is easier said than done. And secondly, that would require a stablecoin issuer to have 100% of their reserves in cash in a bank account rather than stablecoin, rather than Tether, like say for instance, which has said that it has a mix of cash and cash equivalents, including access exposure to bonds, secured loans, precious metals. It's really it's a tricky subject at the moment, and I think that Tether it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tether. Some people are anticipating that Tether's going to implode on itself, and if that was to happen, there's very little doubt that that would have huge ramifications for Bitcoin. Huge. So we'll have to see on that one. But the story was wild. I highly recommend reading it.
Oh, definitely. It was, I really enjoyed reading it, and it kind of made me worry a bit too, I guess. And that's what's going to put fear in other people too, is where they're going to have to come out and say where their funds are that are backing this, because they've said all along that they're backing it, but then they continue to print more, right? So they need to actually really release everything. And I hope it doesn't actually impact the market, that they have everything that they're talking about, which I'm sure they do. They must. If they actually say they do, I hope they can release that to everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake here. I mean, I think it's like something like 68 billion tethers in circulation right now. And a report today, it was either the CoinDesk report or the Bloomberg report, noted that, that would make it a top 50 US bank. This is high stakes stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming today. Do you have anything that you want to add in closing, or anything that you would want to talk about before we end today?
One thing that caught my eye today, and I think this is going to be really interesting to see how this pans out in the next couple of weeks, and it's been out of the news for quite a while, is Mt. Gox, because we are very close now to the deadline for people who are owed money. So Mt. Gox, of course, collapsed in 2014. 850,000 Bitcoin have been hacked and stolen. About 200,000 Bitcoin of that was recovered later. And at the moment, for the past 5 months, creditors have had the chance to vote on how this money should be distributed. Now, what's really, really interesting about this is the value of all of the Bitcoin, all 850,000 Bitcoin, back in 2014 was about $473 million, right? And now this 200,000 Bitcoin on its own is worth $11 billion. It's crazy. So Mt. Gox creditors are basically in the money. The challenge is 50% of all of them need to agree on this rehabilitation plan. Otherwise, it won't pass. People who do not vote will be assumed as being against the rehabilitation plan. And if the rehabilitation plan fails, that could potentially mean they get less. And the people who ran Mt. Gox would actually be in a situation where they had a surplus, which means that they would trouser it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Will it pass? And it's very likely as well that this will create crypto millionaires overnight, because you will have had people who had tens or hundreds of Bitcoin who will suddenly be compensated, I believe, at lower rates than what the current market rate is. I think it's pegged to 2018 levels, but they will be millionaires. And if they've been waiting 7 years to get a hand on their crypto, they might want to sell it straight away. And if they do that, that could cause downward pressure on Bitcoin's price. So that's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye out on in the coming weeks. I think we'll get the vote deadline done on October the 8th. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think we get more information on what's happened on October the 20th. So that's going to be one to watch.
That's amazing.
Fascinating.
Well, awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Connor, for coming. And I'll let Stuart close off, but I appreciate you coming here and your knowledge, and that it's amazing. And this was an amazing interview for me. So thank you for taking the time and speaking to us.
Scott, Stuart, it's been really fun. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Hey, no worries. Pleasure having you on here, and I hope to have you chatting with us again soon. Maybe we'll have some new Dogecoin, but it's bound to be fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just gotta get in here. And hey, sorry guys.
It's all right.
They'll be able to edit this part out, but I'm just trying to get to the recording part. My screen doesn't want me to do that. It's sucking right now. This is why I hate my wife's Mac computer sometimes. There we go. There.